Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Crendor, and welcome back to Crendor Talks in front of a shitty green screen. Today, we're talking about Orruk Warclans, specifically the Bone Splitters. And I was listening to Warhammer Weekly yesterday, and they were talking about the Orruk Warclan book, and they're saying, like, you know what, we should probably just get rid of Bone Splitters. It's time to move on, but I disagree, because I really love the aesthetic of this army. Like, this is one of the armies in Age of Sigmar that I saw and was like, dude, I love this. These, like, caveman, very primal orcs just running around being like, blah, right? Riding on boars and stuff. So I love their goofiness. I love the theme behind them, but they obviously need new models, and I don't think it would be too hard to give them new models, right? They only have a couple models anyway. And, you know, they've gotten, like, Underworld stuff, and I feel like you wouldn't have to put a lot of effort into making new Savage Orcs. And, you know, Orruk, what do they call it? The bow people. The Orc bow. I don't know. Bone Splitter bows. And then just making a new boar. That's like half the army right there. You can make, like, 2 boxes redone. You got half an army of Bone Splitters. So I think they'd be fairly easy to redo and remaster. And I think they actually have a place in the Orruk Warclan book, because, you know, sure, you could go, you know what, get rid of the Bone Splitters, we have Iron Jaws, we have Cruel Boys, and that's it. But I think they can still play a very nice little, like, niche piece in the Orc book. So I think moving forward, the current Orc book is not very good. It's probably one of the worst Battletomes. It's, you know, one of the earliest Battletomes, so it didn't really have a lot of the fun stuff that they currently put in the Battletomes. And I think there's a way to make it so every Orc faction synergizes, yet still has the ability to play on their own. And I think currently Bone Splitters have, like, an okay ability to play on their own. Like, they actually do pretty well, like, better than some of the other Orc armies. They're better than Cruel Boys. But I think the way I would go about it personally is I would have the Iron Jaws be kind of the focal point of being tanky and, you know, hard to kill, and, you know, very kind of elite infantry orcs, right? Like, these are the expensive orcs. They hit hard. Well, maybe they don't hit, like, insanely hard, but they hit pretty hard, and, you know, they're hard to kill. Like, that's what Iron Jaws would be for me. Then Cruel Boys are a lot more of the, like, rogue-like, like, tricksy hobbits type of thing, where, you know, they're doing poisons, they're doing sneak attacks, they're doing all these weird tricks and, you know, swamp magic, and, you know, just being annoying. I feel like the Cruel Boys role is almost like a blue-black magic deck. I feel like they're very, you know, a lot of poisons, a lot of, like, you know, maybe you get hit with something and then you constantly suffer mortal wounds or something every turn. Something that's, you know, makes it, you know, you're -1 to your wound rolls because you're, you know, weakened, or something that just keeps countering stuff, right? Like the big vulture guy and the shaman. He's like, once per game you can roll 3 dice and that's your unbind. Like, why not just make it so he gets 3 dice every time he tries to do an unbind? Like, boom. Like, at this point in the game, there's so much power creep in it. Like, just give him that, right? He doesn't even have a unique spell, so, like, give him some spells and stuff. Like, I feel like they should be the, like I said, the blue-black magic faction of the Orc army. Like, they're just annoying and sneaky, and have a lot of tricks. And then the Bone Splitters. So where are the Bone Splitters in all this? I think the Bone Splitters are actually the perfect kind of glass cannon-y anti-monster unit, or faction, whatever you want to call it, because these are supposed to be monster hunters, right? Like, these orcs hunt monsters. That's what they do. And so just focus on hunting monsters. So let's say, you know, like the bows, right? The bows should get bonus damage or bonus rend or something if they're hitting monsters. Like, if you're hitting a monster, you get +1 to your rend and +1 to your damage or something, right? Like, these guys, they hit monsters hard, right? Like, if they're swinging their axe at a monster, maybe if it's a big boss, he gets double damage against monsters, right? Like, just, these guys kill monsters. And I think something that would be really cool, I had the idea of, is we have monstrous actions right now, right? But what if we had anti-monstrous actions, or, like, monstrous reactions? I guess it'd be more like anti-monstrous actions, but The Bone Splitters could have something where they have their own set of monstrous actions, but they're anti-monstrous actions. So they're like one of the only factions where if they're fighting a monster, you can fight back, right? So you're like, oh, here come the monstrous actions, and then the Bone Splitter's like, oh, we have our own. So maybe instead of a stomp, they have like a stab or something, and they stab a monster for like D6 mortal wounds or something, right? Like maybe they have the ability to, instead of roar a monster, they can like, tie it down so it can't do command abilities. Or like they do like battle wah yells, and then the monster can't hear commands or something like that. Like something where they are one of the only factions that can fight against monsters really well and counter that monstrous rampage with like anti-monstrous rampages. I think that'd be really cool. And that would give them another role in the army, right? If you're building a big wah, you would be like, oh, I want to include some Bone Splitter stuff because in case they have monsters, right? And then you have this little faction of Bone Splitters that can like go fight the monsters, and it creates counterplay because your opponent's like, oh, I don't want to get hit by those Bone Splitter things, right? I think that'd be sick. That feels like it would be a perfect niche thing for them. And then, you can still have your Boar Riders riding around. And, maybe they still get bonus damage. You can still just have everything kind of hit monsters a little bit harder or have bonuses against monsters. But, like, they still wouldn't be bad on their own, right? Like, they would still be fast cavalry. But, I think keeping them at, like, a low save would be good. Almost like Khorne-style units. I know a lot of people get worried when it becomes, like, a glass cannon army. Because if you just get hit, you're dead. But at the same time, you look at things like Bloodthirsters, they have like bad saves and they just charge in, and then it's like, oh, everything within 8 inches takes like 10 mortal wounds. And you're like, oh, okay. So like at this point, we might as well, like make them hit really hard, right? They're these big brute warriors, and they got like that magic shield of whatever. So they still got like a 6-up ward. But they're saving on like 4s and 5s, right? But they're hitting for like insane amounts of damage when they actually hit you, especially if you're a monster. So I think that's what I would like to see from Bone Splitters, is having them become the kind of glass cannony, hard hitting anti-monster faction for the orcs. And then I think if you combine all those, right, you have like some Bone Splitters and you have some Iron Jaws, you have some Cruel Boys, it allows you to kind of have different styles of play, and then mix and match and play however you want within that style. I think it gives you a lot of tools for your toolbox. And then if you want to play solely those factions, you still can. And I think that's how I would go about fixing the Orc book. I would give them very defined roles and then go from there. Because if you're not going to do that, then just give them each their own book, right? Because that's the reason they create Orruk Warclans, is because they all work together in some way, especially if you're running the big WA. Which in itself needs a lot of help. There needs to be a better big WA table, but I just wanted to make a rant about Bone Splitters and how I'd change them and some orc stuff, because currently they need some help, and I love Bone Splitters, and I really do hope that they get some new models and maybe get some rework stuff. Even if it's like, they get some new like focal point units, right? Like the Boar Riders and the infantry with the spears or the swords or the bows, right? Like just 2 kits. Just give me a new Boar Rider kit and give me a new basic infantry kit. That's all I want for the Bone Splitter. And then, maybe like a new unit, right? They can have a new foot hero. Like if anything, they would gladly accept the new foot hero, I think. Or maybe make their current ones updated because they're all like fine cast resin stuff. So I'd take anything. I really love Bone Splitters, man. So let me know down in the comments section below what you think, how you'd fix orcs or Bone Splitters, Cruel Boys, any of the factions. And yeah. Okay. See you.